Sometimes this is bad advice. Now, I know that most of the conversations that we have, the conversations are general in speaking. This is what the general person is doing, the general situation of all things. But there are certain statements that cannot be taken generally. And this is one of them. When I posted this on Facebook, I expected a varying amount of comments. And that's exactly what I received, a varying amount of comments. The thing about it is this type of statement can lead people down a dark path. Now, I do want to remind you guys that today is Tuesday and we are going live at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So join me on my live on Facebook at Lorenzo Reed. Join me live on YouTube at Lorenzo Reed 369. And we're going to have a discussion about K. Michelle and men being able to show their emotions. But in this situation right here, when you find a person who is trying to stay with you at all costs through although you're difficult to be with, this is something that you need to measure. Not so much about the person who is difficult, but the person who is receiving the difficult behavior from the other person. You see, if it's something like, so for myself, I am a huge business risk taker. I take big risk. Oftentimes, those risks gain the reward. But there are times when the risk doesn't receive the reward, the return on the investment that I expect. At no time have anyone been homeless with me or anything of that nature, but sometimes it has caused financial struggles. To stay with someone who takes big risk and 90% of the time they're successful, that 10% can be frustrating. That 10% can be irritating. It could cause stress in the household. That type of person, you may find it difficult to be with them, especially if you're more of a 9 to 5, get the career, the gold watch type of person, safe and secure in your life, in your financial life. It could be difficult for you. For those who don't understand the mentality of a true entrepreneur, and I mean a true entrepreneur, not the hobbyist, it could be difficult. But in some of the more specific areas where you don't follow this advice, if the person is a controlling person, a person who is insecure, you don't stay with them in their difficulty. I've had 2 experiences with people who were very, very controlling. And in their controlling and insecure behavior, it often turns into violence. Well, both times it turned into violence. And at no time should a person sit there and accept the violence of another person. And I know that there is the double standard that a man should be able to withstand the violence of a woman. But let's be real. In the world that we live today, as a black man especially, you are going to be on the losing end of any violent encounter. It doesn't matter that you're defending yourself. It doesn't matter how gently you defend yourself. Or I should say how measured you defend yourself. Just in one instance, actually in both instances, by holding the person tightly so that they cannot keep swinging on you, you're the problem. The police, if they come, which thankfully on neither occasion the police ever were called, I would have been the one who would have had to go to jail and try to prove that I wasn't the one who enacted the violence, which would have been my word against hers. And of course, we know that in court, I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose every time. Unless I have some hard evidence, witnesses who are going to tell the absolute truth, I'm going to lose. A man is going to lose. It's just, unfortunately, the society that we live in. So on both occasions, when that happened, I was done. I'm not going to be there through that person's insecurities that erupted into violence. So no, don't stay with that person. If a person is physically abusive or mentally abusive, you do not stay with that person. If a person was great initially, but then they turn to some type of drug and alcohol that causes them to create poor financial situations, and then become physically and mentally abusive. Don't stay with them. You don't sit up there and say, I'm going to deal with their issues. I'm going to stick by their side. I know that many women were taught that by my, during the time frames of my parents and my grandparents. But let's be real, people. The only reason women stay with men who are physically abusive, mentally abusive, men who had a whole nother family, who were constantly and consistently cheating on them, is because the laws of this country at the time frame of my mother and my grandmother were wholly against women. Women couldn't get bank accounts for themselves. They had to have their husband's signature. Women weren't able to get the type of jobs and careers plenty that would allow for the majority of women to be able to support themselves and their families. The further you go back, men often got the children in a divorce, and the woman was considered to be a pariah in society. It wasn't equitable for a woman to get a divorce, so she just took it. My grandmother just took it. My mom just took it. It wasn't until somewhere in the mid 70s that women actually gained the ability to be able to get a bank account without a man, whether it was a father or a brother or a husband. That wasn't until the 70s where a woman could get a bank account without a man. And it wasn't until like the mid 80s, late 90s before women started to be able to have the same type of job that men had. And it's not even until the 2000s that the pay scale started to get closer and closer, or close enough. And it's not until now that a woman has just as much as an opportunity to make just as much money as a man. So women had to take it. And I'm saying you don't have to anymore. There's no reason for you to do it anymore. This is one of the reasons why the divorce rate is higher in people who are over the age of 40 than it is in any other group. You got 60, 70-year-olds getting divorces now because women don't have to suffer under the thumb of a man to the same degree that my grandmother or my mother had to. So the difficulties of a person, you should not be desiring to stay there. That is not what a relationship is supposed to be about. A relationship is supposed to be about two people who come together to nurture one another, to grow one another, to support one another, to share in all the intimacies with one another, to have joy and peace and love and great sex with one another. That's what you're supposed to be looking for, to build a family, to build for your retirement and go into your golden years with time on your hands to enjoy all the things that you've desired to enjoy all your life, to put down all the struggles of the day-to-day rat race. That's what a relationship is supposed to give you. Not a torturous situation where you are bearing the weight of another person's problems who may or may not be actively trying to solve those problems. So I hate this advice being a general advice. This is definitely more specific. And whatever your individual situation is, if it is not getting better, if efforts aren't being made to change it, then you should not be there. And if the person is violent, you shouldn't wait to see if they change. You should leave. If they're molesters, if they're severe drug users that's impairing their ability to live a civilized life, leave. Don't stay with a person because of their difficulties. There are some that you do, the minor ones, the ones you can deal with, the slight irritations, sure. But I would never be in a relationship just to suffer, and neither should anybody else. And I hope that you receive this message well. And if you're in those types of situations, please seek help. There are plenty of opportunities for you to escape the horrors of those type of relationships. So join me live tonight as we have a different discussion about men's emotions, and I look forward to it. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, Good vibrations.